video, we're actually gonna learn what is the full employment goal, as we already learned the four different types of employment. So first of all, I want to give you a little background about full employment. And so the in the Employment Act of the 1946, and Congress committed the federal government to pursue a goal of the maximum employment, but did not specify what that rate was. Presumably, this means avoiding as much cyclical structural employment as possible while keeping frictional employment within reasonable bounds. So that we consider as a healthy economy. So that means a healthy economy doesn't mean you have to the economy have zero unemployment rate. So actually that will be abnormal. And so the first impression to define this full-time employment more precisely was undertaken in the early 1960s, and the Council of the Economic Advisors decided that approximately a to four employment could be gauged by watching prices, and the rising prices are signals that employment is nearing capacity, and the council placed the full employment rate at 4%. Below that, price being rising. And so since we talk about price rising, we talk about employment, seem like they have some connection to inflation and employment. So that's why we're going to define the inflationary flashpoint. So the definition for inflationary flashpoint means the rate of the output at which inflationary pressures intensify, the point as the aggregate supply curve where slope necessarily sharply. And so this 4% unemployment was regarded as an acceptable compromise of economic and price goals. And during 1970s and the early 1980s, the view of the full employment potentially was considered optimistic. So unemployment stayed far above 4%, even when the economy expanded and the inflation began to rise at high level of the unemployment. So in the view of these factors, the Council of Economic Advisors raised the level of the unemployment thought to be compatible with the price stability. So that's why in 1983, the Reagan administration concluded that the inflation threshold employment rate was between 6 and 7%. So that's how they decided the unemployment rate, what is full unemployment rate. So by listening the background of the full employment, we actually can find a lot of useful information. First of all, what is full employment? So that is lowest employment rate compatible with the price stability. And also in this situation, if we have full employment, we should have zero cyclical employment. And so the if we are looking at the full employment, it doesn't mean we have zero unemployment rate. Actually, under the full employment, you should be able to find people are contributing to the frictional and structural employment. So, if you only see these two kind of employment, so the index you created is pretty healthy. So it's pretty healthy, and so. So next we look at the structural employment. So why the changes happen in the structural employment? So basically we have a couple of main reasons. First is the growing number of the youth and the women. So that will affect the structural unemployment rate. And also changes in transfer payment for the jobless, and changes in products demanded by consumers, and changes in how and where products are made. So they all will causing the structural employment because the candidate will not be able to suit in the working situation or change to the new working station. So during period of the change, structural employment should increase. And you can think about in GE, they are reorganizing, they're moving down to Texas, and how did that affect Erie? So Erie have so many people laid off, and so many people cannot find job, and in GE keep their job in GE. It's not because GE doesn't like that; it's because GE got advanced technology down to Texas, so they actually don't want to hire people who don't have the skills. So that's why during period of change, structural employment usually will increase. And also when changes are fully absorbed and the structural employment decreases. And so that's the case. So if everybody do an excellent job, and so those changes, once everybody knows it, so you will see the unemployment rate actually will decreases. So the structural unemployment will decreases. And so this is the changing in structural employment. So lastly, and we're actually going to discuss in the nature rate of employment. So the ambiguity about what rate of the unemployment trigger an upsurge in inflation has convinced some analysis to abandon the inflation-based concept of full employment. So what is the natural rate of unemployment? So that actually means the long-term rate of unemployment determined by structural force in labor and production market. So I'm sure when people are considering the natural rate of unemployment, they will consider this the definition because the tax reasons. And so if the structural determinant of the unemployment change, presumably so does the level of the nature of employment. So for the congressional target, as we keep emphasizing, for the Full Employment and Balanced Growth Act of the 1978, and stated our nation goal is a 4% unemployment rate with a required goal of the 3% inflation. So the escape clause is that in the event that both goals could not be met, so the president could not set a higher professional definition of the employment. So in the case in the news, if you read the book called the Unemployment Rate hit a 26-year high in October 2009, unemployment hit 10.2%, a rate not seen since 1983. So people or students are more and more students will have to have a lot of debts by the end of the semester. So the escape clause is that in the event that both goals could not be met, and the president actually could set higher provisional definition of employment. So that's pretty much what I will cover in this chapter. And so if you have any questions, feel free to send me email.